So here we are, guys, big day today. Those of you who've been following our Ranger Raptor build will know that I'm pretty smitten with this car. So very well set up out of the box and incredibly capable on and off-road. So everything I've been doing to the Raptor has been obviously trying to make it more sorted or set up for touring, but also not really deviate too far away from what Ford have achieved. So I think they've done an amazing thing with this setup. So been in a bit of back and forth, and I'm just about to pull into the HQ of our mates at Tough Dog. So the guys are actually going to be putting in a spring that will level us out to what the factory height was, but also stiffen things up a little bit more so that when I'm towing the T-van, we don't have it sort of drooped in the rear end too much. So pretty pumped, guys. Let's get in there and get this done, eh? G'day, Dave.
G'day, how are you?
Mate? Good to see you.
Good. Brought the Raptor in to see us?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Time to get some suspension work done, eh?
Mate, have I got a solution for this? We'll get it back the way it should be in no time.
Beauty. Awesome. So, Dave, here we are, mate. A couple of months in the making. I know we've had a little bit of back and forth on the suspension work on the Ranger Raptor here behind us. So, we've sort of gone through a couple of iterations. So, there was a point there where we wanted to answer the question that everyone asked about the Raptor. Can you get 35s on? And we walked through that, a little bit too hard, talked about suspension setups and obviously remaining legal as well. So where are we at right now? Talk us through what makes the Raptor so special outside of the box, because this was a piece you were really passionate about. And from my perspective with the build, for anyone who's been watching, it's always been, geez, this thing's so good out of the box. How do we not ruin it, but also make it more capable for touring and off-road?
Well, that's exactly, you've hit the nail on the head there. So you've taken what is effectively a road-going race car with road-going race-tuned shocks, and you've turned it into a tourer. So you've moved the goalpost completely from where Ford and Fox initially invented those shocks to be. I've actually drawn you a little bit of a diagram as to exactly what we're going to try to achieve today by swapping out these coils to get the most out of the Fox shocks. Now, Kalen, what's happened is you've added 100 odd kilos worth of bar and winch to the front of that car, and also the accessories in the back as well. Now, the Fox shocks are ride height sensitive in their valving. What that means is that they need to operate within this ride zone that's right in the middle of the shock absorber. And that column is about 50 mil tall, okay, worth of ride control there. Below that, we've got much firmer valve to catch compression, and also much firmer valving above that. Yeah, exactly, to catch the rebound. So what's happened, this is the happy spot that your piston head should be sitting in.
Is that where it comes from the factory? Like that's where it's set roughly?
Exactly, right there in the middle. And then what you've done by adding all of that weight is brought it down really close to that compression stop. So every time you hit a bump, that valving is increasing really rapidly when it really shouldn't be. So it's ruining the ride of what is a very nice riding car. What happens is we bring the spring rate, we increase the spring rate, increase the free height of the coils with our Tough Dog coils to bring it back to that happy medium point.
It's compensating for that drop that the gear has created.
Exactly. Now it's also really important not to overdo it. You don't want to put these coils in when you don't have that weight on the car, because otherwise you'll end up too high. Now the car will sit taller, but you're going to have problems getting a good wheel alignment out of it. Granted, they've got fantastic geometry with those upper and lower alloy arms, but you'll be right at the limit of the adjustment. And the same thing, you're going to be running in that valve problem, but instead of on compression, on rebound instead. So these shocks work in a really finely tuned window, and our goal today is to make sure that you are right in the middle of the sweet spot of that window.
All right, well, let's go and take a look at the parts.
Perfect.
So Dave, as we know, a lot of what Ford did with the Ranger Raptor revolves around the changes that they made to the suspension. So there's some pretty sexy, well-developed gear there and a lot of R&D behind it as well. So what are we going to do to actually supplement or make it better? Again, going back to the fact that we love the car, we just want to make it better and we don't want to mess around with it too much. So how are we going to add to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the crown jewel in the Raptor is that amazing front-end geometry and front-end shock absorber from Fox Racing. The guys have put upper and lower alloy arms in there and widened the track to give the car a much more stable ride on the road. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be rematching our Tough Dog springs with the weight that we put on the car. So the guys are going to rip that straight out of the car and we're going to swap it over for a Tough Dog coil.
So Dave, these springs look a little bit different to the usual, so a little bit smaller in the top than the bottom. What makes these so special, mate?
Well, apart from the fact that they're made of our X5K German steel, these ones have actually been bar peeled as part of their build process. So that takes the surface impurities out of the metal. And then we've also bar peeled these top 3 coils a little bit thinner to try and give it a more progressive rate, to try and work as best as possible with those Fox Racing shocks inside that ride control window that we're looking to operate in.
So Dave, as you mentioned before, we have added a little bit of weight with the frontal protection in the bar work. What's this spring going to do to counter for that?
Well mate, what we've done, here's your original spring. What we've done is we've increased the ride height. Now on top of giving that tapered wire, and on top of increasing the rate there, we've actually brought the height up, which is going to counteract the weight that you've put on the car and bring it back into that ride control zone. So we're not actually increasing the ride height of the car, we're restoring it to that factory position, which Fox and Ford have spent so much time developing and getting absolutely right.
So in essence what we're getting, we're levelling back off to where we were, getting within that ride range and the shock that you described before, and actually at the same time finding ourselves at that factory height and compliance.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this spring, I mean, you've moved the goalposts on Ford. They designed this spring to suit the front of that car without the bar, without the winch. You've added all that weight, and that means that we need a different spring. So this spring is specifically designed to reset so that you're right in the middle of those goalposts now that you've shifted them down the field.
Righto mate, so that's the front end. We've put the spring in to counteract for the weight. We've got it at the optimal positioning in the shock. So what's next?
Mate, after that you make it sound so simple, all the work went in earlier. Now that we've done the front, what the guys are going to do is we're going to go onto the back and we're going to do exactly the same thing to match that weight you've put in the rear.
So Dave, we're moving into the back now, right? So a little bit of a different setup back there, but I can't help but notice, I look at these springs, there's 2 things I observed. There's a bit of a taper at the top and the bottom. Height's sort of the same, but the material seems a little bit thicker and a couple more coils. So talk us through the back end of the Raptor.
So the Raptor is quite unique in the back end. It might be a live axle like literally every other ute, but it's got coilovers in the rear there as well. So there's been quite a lot of design work that's gone into these coils to make sure that we can get within that ride zone and also compensate for the additional weight that you've put on the back of the car. Now, one of the most important features here is that we've respected the double reduction. The top and the bottom have been reduced in size, exactly the same as the factory coil. Now, not only does this affect the rate, but this also gives enough room for that Fox shock and its dust boot to operate without fouling, which is really, really important.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we've done is that we've increased the spring diameter, the diameter of the wire, and we've added 1 more coil in there. So that's increased the rate, but also kept it nice and compliant, which suits that rear weight that you've put in the car.
So mate, looks like the guys are done. I'm pretty pumped. Let's get these wheels on and get out for a test drive, eh?
Yep, last thing, wheels on, and then we're going to check the ride height of the car by measuring it at the end here and comparing those measurements to what we took at the beginning. And then, let's rock and roll.
Let's do it.
Alright, so Calum, we're out here on the road. First impressions here, there's a bump coming up. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, so look, not too different, mate. You can obviously feel a little bit of the extra stiffness in your rate that we talked about before, both front and rear. Yep. But that's anticipated, you know. If we'll get some footage of the outside of the thing, and you know, you can definitely see that it's levelled it back out. So that's anticipated. Just going through a roundabout here.
Let's go all the way around and we'll head up onto one of the slightly rougher roads and you'll be able to feel the difference.
Yeah.
But what you can feel there, that's the shock operating within its ride control zone. Okay, so we've allowed that Fox Racing shock to do exactly what it's designed to do and give it that opportunity to work the way that Ford Ford intended it.
Yeah, mate, that's absolutely evident. And, you know, it hits the mark. You know, like I said before, you know, they've done a wonderful job out of the box. And what we've been able to achieve here is not a massive change from the ride from factory, which is great. Mind you, we're sort of only on tarmac here, so I'm looking forward to getting it out on the dirt. But, mate, very impressive so far, which is really good.
Absolutely. Well, look, you'll have to give me some feedback once you get it out there, but I hope you enjoy it.
Absolutely, mate. Thank you so much. So, look, that pretty much wraps up the outside type sort of part of the build. You know, we've done now suspension, wheels and tyres have been done. We've put some bar work and protection. Guys, what's next? Electricals. Stay tuned.